Draghi, welcome in our midst, brave also, because you may be a hero in Italy, you may be a hero in the southern debt countries, and in the world of investors like Goldman Sachs and the banks. But here in Holland, you're not a hero. Was QE necessary? Another question I have is, who profited the most of QE? Who was profiting of QE? Were it only the debt countries like Italy, who had a low interest rate on their southern debt? Was it the investors who get a high price for their southern bonds? Or were it the banks who were able to swap the bad assets for good assets?
Well, first of all, just to answer about the fact that I'm not an hero, or I'm an hero, or where I'm an hero, actually it's not my job to be a hero, but just to pursue my mandate. And my mandate is price stability. And that was what was at stake exactly at the beginning of QE. And that's the reason why we had QE, to comply with our mandate, as we are bound by the law.
And you still believe that this is fully within the framework which you have, and that you still are not doing any monetary financing, even though you've bought 2,500 billion euro of government debt by the end of the year?
Yes, we do. We do. I think we believe that our precautions have been put in place exactly to avoid this danger. That the issue limit has been moved upward, but still consistent with what the collective action clauses in bonds foresee. So it's not been moved since then. It's not been moved since then. But still, I would recall what the European Court of Justice has said, giving broad discretion to the ECB in what instruments to use in order to pursue price stability. Thank you.
But, I mean, on the last part you say, indeed, you have the collective action clause. If you have more than 33%, you can indeed block restructuring of, for instance, the government debt if it needs to. So if Italy needs to restructure and you hold 34%, you would have the very unfortunate position that the ECB could block the restructuring because it would lose or want to do the restructuring, and you're a political actor. But even if you have 32%, then you just need one other relatively small actor, and you still have a veto power, and you're an enormous political player in a necessary restructuring if the case comes up. How do you mitigate that problem if this case becomes true, because the levels of debt are still rising in part of the Eurozone, and if such a case comes up, will you then look at the interest of the Eurozone or at the interest of the balance sheet of the European system of central banks?
Thank you. Sorry for repeating, but we look at price stability, number one. Second, we have our mandate. Third, we have the treaty that says that we don't do monetary financing. Fourth, we are sure that the precautions we put in place are enough to avoid this risk.
It doesn't seem like you want to answer my colleague Omtzigt.
No, I've answered. Absolutely, yes.
But he was concerning the risk, whether you hit the percentage which he was talking about.
You want me to say what we would do in case certain unrealistic hypotheses were to take place? I'm not going to say that. We don't want to speculate on things that have no probability of happening. Sorry? Period. Yes, sorry, yes.
You say there is no probability that at any point in the future, any of the national debts of the Eurozone countries has to be restructured? That's a zero probability event?
No. We said no. I don't know about that. I don't want to speculate on that. We have decided the 33% limit, it's enough for the collective action clauses, and that's period. We are not going to speculate on the fact that if there is one that has 1%, we could do this and that. That's, frankly, speculation in which I don't think it would be right for us to spend time.
But is it also speculation that one of the countries of the Eurozone at some point will need restructuring? and that a large amount of debt stays within the European system of central banks, for which the European taxpayers will foot the bill at the very end.
So far, the taxpayer hasn't foot any bill. So this also, we may discuss this about the dangers of something that might happen. So far, what I see as a reality is that our monetary policy has supported the recovery in the Eurozone, has created 4.5 million jobs, which were not available before. That's what I see so far. That's the reality. The rest is speculation. Now, you're asking me where I publish, no, I'll come to this if you want. You're asking me about publish my agenda. I do publish my agenda. Why are you asking that? You're asking whether we publish the account of our meetings. We do publish them. Why are you asking them? Worldly? What does it mean, worldly? Oh, no, it was decided to do the accounts, not the minutes, like other central banks do, by the way. And then what else, Diana, did you ask me about, the SSM. The SSM is already very transparent. If things can be improved, we'll certainly do it. But I think you should ask, thanks to the separation principle, I think you should ask this to Madame Louis.
I was wondering, because you were a little irritated about...
No.
About...
About what?
About the amount of money, the risk you take by putting 2,500 billion at the end of the year, purchasing bonds, and that's 25% of the total debt of the Euro country. The problem is, how many countries are all now on the limit of 33%? I read the Portuguese is almost 33%, the Irish is always 33%, at the end of the year the Netherlands, Finland. So you are getting to the limit of what you can purchase, and when you touch that
Question
limit...
clear, how many countries?
Yeah, and when you touch that limit, how is the balance then, when you cannot buy anything from Holland, but you can buy a lot from Italy still?
We are bound by rules, and we intend to stick with them. And we're also confident that our program will run smoothly. I'll stop at this. There is no other way I can respond to your question about risks.
But
I think you will
other
get...
than reassuring you that the rules are going to be respected.
You've said in January that any country leaving the Eurozone must settle the bill first. Regarding Italy's possibilities of leaving the Eurozone. As we and the Netherlands now have a surplus in the Target 2 system of around 100 billion euro, does this, by your own words, mean that if the Netherlands decides to leave the Eurozone, which is one of the key points of my party's program, we would get back 100 million euro from the southern countries in the Eurozone, according to your views?
Mr. Draghi.
Thank you. Let me respond to you as I have responded to similar questions in the European Parliament. The euro is irrevocable, and this is the treaty. I will not speculate on hypotheses that have no ground in the present treaty. Second, the euro has been a success for the Eurozone and especially for countries like the Netherlands. As I mentioned before, you had an economic situation, thanks, I should say, first and foremost, to your strength, to the way to the quality of your laws, to the fact that your business environment is growth-friendly, to your own merits, but also to the support of our monetary policy. You had an economic situation which was rarely so good. But also there is a deeper reason, and there is a deeper reason why the euro has benefited all countries, but especially countries that are strong, export-oriented, with high productivity, and a business-favorable legal environment. The euro has protected the single market. most of you are too young to remember the 80s and the early 90s, when we had periodic devaluations of all countries, and there was a strong instability there. Neither price stability was there, nor the better countries, which were stronger, could actually see their merit rewarded, because there were continuing devaluations robbing them from their merit. Now, the single market was a major achievement towards our integration, but it was also an achievement that has increased our prosperity, our collective prosperity. And the single market cannot be protected other than with one currency, with irrevocably fixed exchange rates. And that's why the euro came into consideration in the early 90s and was finally found its place in the Maastricht Treaty. So I think if we remember the experience of those years, we should have no doubts about the euro being a success. And also legally, I made the point before.
Just one point, you said you didn't want to speculate about the possibility of the Eurozone falling apart, but isn't that precisely what you did in January when you were saying if Italy leaves, it will have to settle the bill? You were actually speculating about the breaking apart of the Eurozone, and wouldn't it be intellectually fair to have the same principles if the Netherlands decides to leave?
In the European Parliament, I was asked the same question about that. I said one can have technical answers of all kinds, but the point is the euro is irrevocable, and I'm not going to speculate on hypotheses that have no ground whatsoever.
We'll see about that then.
We'll see about that, for sure. Again, reality shows that the outcome has been different. We have an index which measures the growth in value added in each country, which is a proxy for growth in GDP. And then we calculate the dispersion of this index. In other words, how much these growth rates diverge across countries. So now we are at the same level as we were in 1997. So it means broad convergence in the euro area countries. Clearly, during the crisis, there were huge divergences in rates, in credit, and in growth rates and employment rates. If we have to look now at the situation, it has improved on that account as well. So that is very good news also for another reason. Convergence, in our view, convergence and trust are the two pillars on which the Eurozone is founded. And so any improvement we have on that ground. Now, of course, we have to have another type of convergence, which was the one we were discussing before, convergence as far as structural reforms are concerned. And that's the other part, which will have to be addressed.